Alright guys, so in this video I'm going to be talking about layered audiences and combined audiences in AdWords. This is something that they just honestly started doing pretty well. When I was originally getting started, the way layered audiences worked was a bit different. It was very messy and it didn't ever work very well for me. It sort of works now, it sort of doesn't. But I know you're going to look at this, and the way that people look at their Facebook ads and layering audiences is a lot different than how AdWords works. For example, on Facebook ads, let's say you have a giant audience, like, okay, I want everybody that likes Tony Robbins, and then I'm going to also select everybody that likes Frank Kern. If you're not in the marketing niche, Tony Robbins is, of course, a big self-help guru, and Frank Kern is a marketer, pretty famous marketer. And so what happens is you get this big audience, and then you're able to extract the micro audiences that's in there to get this almost, for lack of better words, a person that's into self-help and Frank Kern. So that's going to be very useful to you if you have a how to start a business offer, because this person's into improving their life and they're a fan of entrepreneurs. So they're probably going to be very likely to take your start a business offer. The thing you need to understand about AdWords is it doesn't quite work like this. I want to show you an actual live example. So here's an example right here where my audience is just a giant advertising in market audience. Okay, it's just advertising and marketing services. Okay, you can see there's nothing else going on here. And so here's another audience right here where it's layered with advertising in market and keywords. So if a person searches for these keywords and is in this market space right here, then we're going to target them. So you would think right here, if I layer this, if I go and layer this with these keywords and this audience that's already working, I would get better results because my audience is more targeted. But as you can see right here, this isn't really the case. My CPL, to get a person to opt in for just this basic audience, and the CPL for this layered audience, they're identical almost. In fact, the one with the basic audience is doing better. And the reason why I'm going to tell you to avoid this when you're starting off is it's very theory-based. It's very test and see what happens kind of based. So for example, you can see I have some audiences down here, like this audience right here is people that it's a combined audience of people that are in a market audience and part of another affinity. And I kind of mix and match things. I kind of Frankenstein it. Okay? And so what I'll do when I'm layering audiences is I'll go and think of, okay, what is a big list of really broad intent audiences or keyword audiences, or what's just a big batch of audiences? What's a big giant list of audiences I can combine together? And then I layer it with another huge audience, like an affinity audience. And hopefully what this will do is it will make the targeting a bit better and get me a good result. Now, the thing I want to stress is this is very Frankenstein. Sometimes this gets me a good result, okay? There's times in these examples where you can see right here, in this example right here, I'm actually getting a pretty good result. I got a key in market audience plus broad $10 result. But look at this one right here, key in market plus the affinity audiences that came directly from my demographic insights that I showed you how to find out earlier. It's $40 conversion. Obviously, you can see like this didn't work at all. This didn't work at all. So it's very Frankenstein. It's very Frankenstein. And so what I suggest you do if you do this is if you have a keyword audience and let's say an intent audiences that both work on their own when you're first starting off, you don't need this to break $100,000 a month. I scaled well past $1 million per month only using individual audiences. I never use a single layered audience. So you don't need to do this. But if you must do it, what I suggest to do it if you're starting off where you're at the point where you're not comfortable losing money or gambling your ad money like I am right here, you want to find, let's say you have an intent audience that works really well on its own. And then you have a keyword audience that works really well on its own. Or you have an infinity audience that works really well on its own. Then you want to maybe combine these audiences because you're going to be at lower scale if you're just starting off. Then you want to combine these audiences to maybe get a super target audience that might save you, if you're paying $5 CPL, maybe $4 CPL. That's kind of when you want to use these audiences. Now, when we're going really broad, what we're going to want to do is, what I'll do is I'll combine these very recklessly. Okay, so let me kind of show you how I'll combine these when I'm going broad. So this is what you want to do if you're scaled down. You want to find stuff that's 100% working and combine it together. Now, what you're going to find a lot of times is when you go and look at your audience manager and in your ad insights, is you're going to see these giant affinity audiences and these giant in-market audiences. Okay, so if I go look at my audience insights and I look at everybody that's gone and opted in, let's say everybody that purchased 30/30. Or better yet, let's look at everybody that opted in for Hyros so far. Okay, so you see these giant affinity audiences right here. These are just way too big to be betting on. These are way too big to be betting on. And you also see these affinity audiences. Now, one thing I want to point out is that AdWords has already gone and created a similar audience for me. So if I just want to go and target people that match a lot of these things, I don't need to go and create a combined audience or a layered audience. I'll just use the similar audience. That's really what the similar audience is doing. But what I'll try to do sometimes is, if I'm scaling up, I'll try to extract audiences from these affinity audiences and these in-market audiences. And what I find really works well is combining keywords or intent audiences with an in-market or infinity audience. And so you have to understand that affinity audiences and in-market audiences are really broad. I know I didn't write this well, but they're really broad audiences. And intent audiences and keyword audiences are hyper-targeted. And what you're going to see a lot of times inside of AdWords is you're going to find intent audiences that maybe get you, like, let's say my CPL is $5 usually, but it's going to get me like a $15 CPL. So they're audience that just almost work, but they're so broad and so huge. If we could scale it up or just find the good customers inside of it, it would work. And then you're going to find affinity and in-market audiences that get you, like, again, if we're getting a $5 CPL, get you a $20 CPL. So they just kind of work, but don't work. And so what we can do in this case right here is we can extract the best of both worlds. So let's imagine there's an intent audience that isn't working for me, like SMMA. People are looking to start a social media business, or SEO. This is a classic example. Whenever I would go bid on the keyword SEO, this is people that naturally want to do search engine optimization. It would always get me way higher CPLs, cost to acquire a customer. Or maybe if you're, and let's say your niche is makeup, okay? And so you go and bid on stuff like acne, and you just can't make that work, okay? You're just not, the CPL is usually $2 and you're getting a $10 CPL. Well, what we could do is we could make an intent and keyword audiences based around acne. So we could make keywords like acne this, acne that, acne whatever. Or an intent audience that's based around acne, the way I showed you to set it up before. And then we combine it with the in-market and affinity audiences that we see in our demographics, and we combine those together. So what I could do right here is, if I'm having trouble making the affinity audience, web design and development work right here, I can go and combine that with people that are looking for certain keywords or in certain intent audiences. So let's talk about how we do that. Now, I also want to point one other thing out. I have an audience right here that's doing really well for me that is a in-market plus custom affinity. So what I did is I went and grabbed affinities. I think in this example, I grabbed maybe avid business news readers and combined it with business services, okay? So what I did in this example right here, created this audience. I went and to make a combined audience, and then when I go to edit this, if you look at this, I just stuffed everything in there. All right, so I put key and market audiences, and then I put in a bunch of affinity audiences based on websites. Okay, so I combined website custom affinity audiences with in-market. So if you're at the point where you're ready to gamble a little bit, this worked really well for me. This worked really, really well for me. Okay? But let's go through the different layers of how to build this. So starting from scratch, where we'd want to start off with is we want to start off probably layered audiences. This is probably going to be the easiest place for you to start off with because it's very easy. So you can see what I did right here. The way you do layered audiences with keywords is you can do the way I'm about to show you, but I think this is a little bit easier for you to understand. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to your audiences column, and you can go and take all your in-market audiences right here. You can see I took a bunch of in-market audiences that are relevant to my user base. Now, some of these are ones that I saw specifically in my demographics and key insights tab. Some of these are ones I just imagined they might have. I said, okay, they might be looking for email marketing services, I might be looking for web hosting. But you're going to notice right here, you don't always want to stack the deck either. You don't always want to throw it on there. You can see that honestly what happens is it starts to cannibalize itself. You can see this happening right here. So as I'm going through here, I might want to make my own group where it only has advertising and marketing services, another one has web design and development. You don't want to go and throw 10 different ones in here. Okay? You don't want to go and throw 10 different ones in here. And so the layering right here, this is what's going to happen. And when I go and look at the keyword targeting right here, you can also see I did the same exact thing. I threw in a bunch of guru names. And so you can see this is how we can do layered audiences. And so what I'd suggest when you're doing a layered keyword audience is maybe restrict to 1 or 2 in-market audiences max, because you can see what's happening right here. It cannibalizes itself. And then what I'd suggest is taking just mass amounts of your keywords and throwing them in here. So just all of them, just kind of throw everything at the board. I'll show you how I did this again in another one. Okay? So if we come down here, I made another audience just like this, and I bet we're going to see the same exact thing. Okay, so we're seeing a lot of people in advertising and marketing services coming in right here. And the keywords I targeted, what it combines with, is all these ones based around ads. And you can see marketing cannibalized the entire thing. It cannibalized the entire thing on here. Honestly, it went and spent the most by far. Almost. Okay, so you can see all these weird keywords I would have never dreamed up. Add user to Facebook page, pixel advertising, ClickBank, Facebook ads. And you also have to understand these are all broad keywords. So marketing right here might have targeted tons of other marketing keywords out there, okay? So I'm just kind of reading this data right here. So I'm probably just going to turn off marketing though. And you can kind of see how I'm grooming this and how I kind of go and look through this. But I took a ton of my keywords and just chunked them all in here. And you can see the keywords start to cannibalize themselves too. So you might want to isolate the 4 to 5 main keywords and 1 or 2 in-market audiences while you do this. I'm just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what happens with these audiences. And frankly, I'm not super attached to it because look at all that hard work on that audience. Look at all that thought and experimenting that's going on with these ads right here. $9 CPL, $10 CPL. And then there's just me targeting the super basic advertising and marketing services. That's why I really don't like this method. I don't like this because it's a lot of theory crafting. And what I think is really happening is, in a lot of instances, this combination, you're going to end up with one audience that isn't very relevant. So let's just say I'm doing the in-market audience, advertising and marketing, okay? And then I'm also doing another intent audience like web design. Well, this audience right here would have worked just fine by itself. And so what happens is we're just taking the people that would already come from this audience at the same price and still getting the same audience. And so this audience right here is just irrelevant. It doesn't really matter. And that's kind of proven by what's going on right here. Okay? And so again, if you want to combine tons of different audiences the similar audiences appear to work a lot better. Now, There's another way to combine audiences together, and I think this is a much better way to do it. But again, it's Frankensteining it, because it's a big old black box. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how it's going to work. And you can see right here, these audiences right here, very hit and miss. Like these ones, the CPL is not giving me an advantage right here. I'm really looking to kind of see how this works out long term. So again, our goal should always be to create ads that work with basic keywords, basic audiences, basic affinity audiences. But what I've done right here is I've created combined audiences. And so what I'm going to try and do with these audiences right here is I'm going to go to these audiences. When I'm creating these, I'm going to go down to combined audiences. So you go to audiences. When you're creating your audiences, go to the search, go to browse, scroll down, go to combined audiences. And this allows you to combine audiences together. Now, what I've found works very well from my experiences are in-market or affinity audiences combined with an intent audience, or in-market combined with custom affinity audiences. Those are the ones you create around websites. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and grab like 5 in-market audiences and 5 custom affinity audiences and just throw them together and see what happens. You can also experiment with 1-to-1, 2-to-2, whatever you want to do. But what I'm stressing right here and that you need to understand is this is Frankensteining. I'm putting money on red and seeing what happens. This is why I'm strongly not encouraging this on AdWords, especially when you're starting off. It's not a big key. I see everybody talking about it on Facebook, and this is just more people complicating shit to make shit complicated, in my opinion. And Facebook, combining and narrowing audiences is kind of your bread and butter. This doesn't work the same way from my experience, and you can see that happening right now in my ad account. Now, when I go into this, let's say I want to have this combined audience. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab I'm going to go and grab some of my custom audiences. So let's say in this example right here, I'm going to go and I want to say, all right, so everybody who's in my custom intent audience, AdWords ads, and I don't want to exclude. And is similar. I don't want to use similar in this example. Everyone who's in my custom audience right there and is in the custom affinity audience entrepreneur, target them. Okay? And then I'll hit create. And so that will go and create that audience for me. And so that could be a good audience. It could be a bad audience. And the way I'm going to start up that bid is I'm going to go and put about $30 on it and see how it goes the next day. If it looks good, I might keep it running. If it doesn't, I'm going to turn it off. But it's super hit and miss. There's many ways that the needle could drop. I don't think that's a metaphor. There's many ways the ball could roll in that example. Now, if I wanted to go and do a in-market plus custom affinity, what I do is this. So remember how to create custom affinities. We're just going to go in here. We're going to create a custom affinity. We're going to put a few of our competitors' websites in here. Put in a URL. It will give us the similar sites they're interested in. So you can see that I've already gone and created a few custom affinity audiences based on my competitors' websites. So what I would want to do is I'd want to go and create a combined audience using, let's just say, a good in-market audience. Let's do business services. Or we could do an intent audience. I'm just going to focus on an in-market audience right now. Okay, so this is a massive in-market audience. And then I'm also going to do people that are in my custom affinity audiences that are similar to people that visited my competitor's website. So I could do like digital marketer. And I'm usually going to stuff a few of these in here because sometimes it doesn't start up and it's kind of wonky with how it will work. So I might go put a few of these in there. So people that are in the business services are visiting Make Money Online websites, digitalmarketer.com. And you need to remember, affinity audiences are not lookalike audiences of the visitors to these websites. It looks at the overall topic of the website, the information that's on the website, and goes and generates a combination of infinity audiences. All right, so this is basically affinity audiences, a few of them combined together with this. Then I hit create, and that will go and give me that new audience, which I'll just name Iron in Market plus Custom. Okay, and so that's the general thought process behind it. The big takeaways I want you to take away from right now is how we just combine these audiences and the thought process behind it, and also how we went and groomed the keywords and looked at the audiences that were cannibalizing each other. Because this is going to take a little bit of grooming and trial and error. I don't think it's a key method again. You don't need this to scale, okay? You don't need this to scale up. This is something you might want to play around with, you might not want to play around with, but I wouldn't really suggest getting into it until you're at least doing $50,000 a month from your webinar and you have some cash to play around with. Because this is definitely, some of the audiences are going to work, some of them are just not going to work, and you're kind of having to Frankenstein things together, and sometimes the Frankenstein will be awesome, sometimes it won't be. And so that's just part of it. That's how bidding on the ads usually will go, and that's essentially how this would work. So this is how layered audiences work and combined audiences work. If you have any questions, tag me in the group.